It's happy hour, so
Bam, got a beer.
you got one? Well, look
Well,
what I got.
it's in a cup. Ooh, you still drinking Marto? It wasn't bad. Which one did you have? You had the Oktoberfest.
This is the one you gave me. This is the Martoberfest.
Nice.
So, but I've also got a suitable mug
There you go.
to drink it out of. So, making sure I don't spill things here. We're getting a little early jump on things.
How long have you been rolling here?
This is 7 hours and 4 minutes.
Jesus.
That's why I needed the eye drops before we started. So, all
So
right. So
so
now,
so, so you're drinking at hour number 7. How long do you have to go?
let's see. Well, from here and then after we go with Hager's happy hour, we got Ryan Warner from Wrestling Changed My Life from 5 to 5:30 Central Time. And then we go with Jeremy Barnes from The Grind, the App State Wrestling podcast. Then we take a break for dinner. Then I come back from 7 to 8 with Cody Goodwin of the Des Moines Register. Then 8 to 8:30 with Al and Josh from the Al and Josh Show. Then Claunch hits at 8:30, along with Austin Early from Changing Levels. Then Women Wrestle 2 at 9, Morgan O'Brien at 9:30, Andrew Spey and Ben Askren at 10 to 10:30 to whatever. So still
Nice.
got about halfway through.
You got to pace yourself at this point.
Well, this is number 1.
There you go.
So we
Cheers to
got a
that.
nice German beer out of a nice German Stein. So daughter's just gotten back from school, and let's see. Here's the thing with this particular time slot is don't exactly have to spend every second talking about the podcast, but we are because Tony, you have a couple different things brewing. Of course, I'm staying on brand with the hat I
Appreciate it.
picked up this weekend at Night of Conflict. And before we talk about the podcasting side of things with IAWrestle, what an event. Night of Conflict. I want to dial this back a little bit and actually do a little bit of a news because we didn't do a podcast out there. I did bring my gear, but there were just too many shenanigans being done and too much great wrestling. So first things first, Night of Conflict. What was the genesis behind the actual event and how it's grown? And now a 2-night event. We had an all girls card on Friday night, blew the roof off of every expectation I ever had. So I guess we talk about how the event starts before we get into the real brass tacks of International Podcast Day.
I mean, the Night of Conflict first got started at we were partnered with Naked High Horse, Luke Eustace, Hawkeye Wrestling Club. They used to run Conflict at Carver, and that tournament just kept on getting bigger and bigger. And IAWrestle started to get a little bit more popular, and I was like, dude, let's put on a high school event prior to this. Let's try to get some bigger names to the tournament to wrestle in that to make that more, get more prestigious. And man, the first year that we had it, we had some pretty big names, and obviously Alex Marinelli is there right now. So that's a name off that always gets brought up as our first Night of Conflict. So the first concept was that, and did it there for a couple years. Took a year off because we lost Carver date. The tournament just went away. That we just brought it back here last year in Waterloo. We coincided with another tournament, and this year we're not associated with any tournaments whatsoever. So we were able to have time to be able to do 2 events because we're not worried about setting up the stream or anything like that. So the girls able to get their own night or setting up the event anyways, instead of just having it within the event where there's 2 or 3 girls. We have enough numbers now in Iowa to where they get their own night. And that was, as you said, it was just special to be there and it go off and the girls had a blast, right?
Yeah, what I loved about it was just what it meant because Sanction Iowa is a movement right now. You saw the shirts everywhere. And we were witnessing history. And it was, again, I didn't have anything other to do with the events other than you guys brought me in to announce, which was, I'm pushing the agenda of wrestling on social. Whenever there's a new state tournament puts up, it makes the newsletter. I put it on the in the Twitterverse and whatnot. But what I saw Friday night in Sioux City was just, I don't want to use overly done words like it was transcendent or whatever, but I thought all those words that we were using to talk about the event were apt because we showed that granted there was 9 falls out of 12 matches, I think the numbers were, but the fact is the girls went after it, and they went after each other. They were ready, they were pumped, and it was, I mean, just in talking with Emma Grimm afterwards when Heath came by and hung out with us, her father, the coach at Upper Iowa, just talking about, just the girl was glowing about the experience she had, and just think now soon Iowa, hopefully, if we can get the girls union in that state to start girls wrestling or create a sanctioned state girls wrestling tournament, there are how many more hundreds and thousands of girls that will get to experience that. And Emma got it just on the small scale. Imagine winning a state tournament that's got the Iowa high school association's name on it. I mean, it'd be a real tournament. So that's one thing that I really, to be able to witness what's going on in Iowa was really special to me.
I mean, think of, it's just one gal I interviewed, Abby Bohm. She just started wrestling last year, I believe. She's going to go to SDSU to be a shot putter, and someone talked her into coming out for wrestling, and she comes in and gets a win. And think about the people that were watching that event, and maybe they have a young girl and they're like, hey, let's try wrestling, just because she had never wrestled in her life. She's been doing shot put, had lots of success in it. It's just, wrestling is just one of those things where, and I think girls wrestling is just getting them out there on the mat, seeing other girls, competing against other girls. It's just a different feel than if you've seen a girl wrestle a boy. And that's what was awesome about Friday.
Yeah, or you had the opportunity to put more than just 1 or 2 girls bouts on a card, because we're seeing it. The numbers right now may work out to be, okay, we have this many wrestlers, we have this many girl wrestlers. Well, this is how many, adequately fills out whatever the proportion ratio, whatever you want to call it. But now, once you go that way, it's going to be hard. You can't dial it back, because what I saw Friday night and Saturday night and again, I'm not telling you how to run your business, but that's a 2-night event that was awesome. And what do I get to see? I get to see all the good stuff anyway. And I'm saying that was one of the, I mean, granted, I'm not saying it's because we haven't done an event since March, but I'm saying I had so much fun calling those bouts from kids I really didn't know. And just, they got that championship feeling, and it was intimate. The folks in Sioux City, I know Chris McGowan from their Chamber of Commerce came up and was talking to us afterwards, and he's a guy that's now on the Board of Visitors for the National Wrestling Hall of Fame, Board of Governors, excuse me, for the National Wrestling Hall of Fame. And you got people like that involved and bringing wrestling to Western Iowa. A lot of the time it's, it's Iowa City, it's Waterloo, it's Dubuque has a bunch of events typically. But, to bring something to Sioux City, I thought was great too, because there's a great wrestling community out there.
I mean, the support out there was mainly why. I mean, you don't think about it because there's not a lot of events out there, like you said. There's, I believe the trials were there one time. They were,
2006 World Team Trials were there. It was a year Andy Rovat pinned Mola Wall while I was in the bathroom.
So that was like the last time there's been a big event there. But wrestling has evolved so much since then, and there's more kids clubs around the area. Legends of Gold is just up the road in in South Dakota. North Dakota. South Dakota. I'm getting these confused here. Sorry.
I believe it's Beresford, if that's how you say it.
Beresford. Yes, Beresford. So they had tried to get a couple kids in there, but the community around the whole event leading up to it, they were super supportive. They were out trying to find sponsors. That was great. I mean, from hotel rooms to restaurants around the area, they were excited to have us there. And I'm not sure if some of these places even heard of IAWrestle, right? So, the people like Chris McGowan and Bill Gockel saying, hey, like, this is a big deal, not just the girls event, but the boys event as well. So that community support was really, you felt it on Friday and Saturday night, and they came out in support, and the place was packed really both nights. I mean, Friday was not as crazy, but those girls had support, and that was really important to see that on a Friday night when there's football going in Iowa. That's what people do in Iowa during football season. To see a good crowd there was very, going forward, great to see. Like, hey, we can still do these Friday, Saturday, back to back, anywhere where we go. But Sioux City, if we come back, we know we're going to have the support.
Well, one thing that I also liked about it, and we heard this from some coaches, is it was like it wasn't a tournament. If you had girls wrestling on Friday night, you could get them ready, and then on Saturday you could get the boys ready, and you could make a weekend out of it. And the sponsors, and for example, I'm a craft beer guy. We all know that. Look, you've got a Gable Gold behind you and the Matt Talk draft glass, which is fine drinking apparatus. So I've got the Gable Gold Stein, and again, the beer was from Mardo, the brewing company across the street, and they really, opened their doors. They stayed open for the parents, and they had great. I mean, I was talking to Tyler Wells' dad, and he's like, "Hey, where do you get something to eat?" I says, "Well, there's, if it's wrestler food, you want a big pretzel, you want, the wood brick oven pizza," and then I got over there, and I'm waiting to order. And I see these sliders walk by. I'm like, "Give me those." I didn't even need to see the menu. I was like, "I saw that. I want that." So. You talk about the businesses and such, and it was just a real atmosphere where you could kick back. You didn't have to worry about, okay, we got to be back at the gym at 7:30 for weigh-ins. I mean, it was one of those things that, from an event standpoint, it would be a destination. If I'm an Iowa wrestling fan, if I live in the state of Iowa, this is a destination weekend if this is how this format stays. So that's my endorsement for, if you do it like this again, I'll be back, as long as there's, maybe not a world championships that overlaps it or something.
Yeah. But
I know it was just so much freaking fun, man. I mean, it's like I've been talking about, I was talking with my wife about it once we got done, because just the movement we have for women's wrestling in this country. And, I still talk about my greatest Olympic moment was when I got to say, when Helen Maroulis won the gold. It's like, ladies and gentlemen, please rise for the national anthem of the United States of America. And to know that I was there for that, and I witnessed Helen, I'd known her since she was 15, and just see that girls now have that dream. That's attainable because there's somebody that's done it before. And just, it was, honestly, I can't rave about, especially the girls event. I mean, there's great wrestling Saturday night, but I'm kind of more blown away by what I witnessed from the girls on Friday. And I really think you guys have done something special here with the dual days and the doubleheader, girls and boys.
I agree that a destination weekend, that's what you want to do. If you're not just coming out for one night, support both nights, and being able to, sleep in the morning and go out and do whatever you want in Sioux City, because there's plenty of great things to do out there. You have plenty of time to kind of decompress and then get pumped up again for Saturday night. So that was I agree. Destination weekend. That's what I'm looking forward to.
So one person that made it a destination, I think he's sitting in there with you as your off-camera co-host who's been amped up for this. I think between him, he was in the corner, him and TJ were in the corner for what, 900 of the 800 bouts?
Yeah, Adam Fellers, TJ Siebel, they got a ton of kids, and they've got kids throughout the state. It's not just like a central located club. They're all over the place.
Kids come from Wisconsin, right?
It's crazy. Yeah, and that's, they're in the corner a lot, but there's lots of kids, and that's just the way it is. There's plenty of other clubs that were, almost all of them were represented. Big Game Wrestling Club was there. DC Elite was there. They got obviously Siebel. There's Immortal was there. Davenport, the girls were obviously well represented out there on Friday.
You have your own peanut gallery for this show, for this segment too.
One beer and he's done, Brian. He's already slurring.
Fellers is always chirping in my ear. He's my backup. He's my backup, or I'm his backup. I'm not sure what it is.
I just think his kids did a pretty good job coaching, because we knew it wasn't from the guy holding him.
he was there's.
Keep doing a good job, Brian.
He came up to me right before. He said, "When we gonna do a happy hour? When we go happy hour?" The only good thing about him being in the corner so much is he wasn't sitting next to me at the table the whole time.
He would have been loud in your mic.
It might be too deep for. I might be too deep for Brian.
Oh, you can go deep. He can go deep. But yes, the whole weekend, man. Thank you for coming. There's lots of people to thank, obviously, for that weekend, and the people of Sioux City, from the coaches to the athletes, really for them to put it on the line in a time where like a lot of uncertainty, very like just tons of positive vibes, really zero positive, negative things to take away from the event, things you can improve on. Right. But overall, the feeling when you walk away from that event this weekend was, damn, like it hits on so many levels for so many different reasons. It really an emotional weekend again for me, like just to be able to put all the pieces together. It comes through and people walked away smiling. Even if they lost, they were just really on Friday for sure. All the girls were just stoked to get a singlet, but they were, just a lot of positive vibes this weekend. That's what we need right now. A lot of positivity.
Now, shifting gears to why we're here, International Podcast Day. I mean, we're going to talk about wrestling topics over the course of we got 40 more minutes we're talking here because, I don't know, the Iowans wanted to take that hour, so we got 2 hours more of Iowa to go, but we're talking about IAWrestle. You guys were National Wrestling Media Association's website of the year a couple years ago, have gone from being basically a Hawkeye fan blog to putting certain bloggers / journalists at places, bloggers that kind of morphed into actual bona fide journalists at Northern Iowa, Iowa State, and then the state's other programs, whether they be NAI, Division III, Division II, a lot of coverage, and it's become a media enterprise in the state of Iowa, and kind of freshen things up. Granted, not without your own, trip ups and learning experiences along the way, but
yeah.
when you guys started IAWrestle and created a website that was for the state, what was the initial goal behind it, and where are you guys at now from when that goal was initially stated?
It seems like it was so long ago. Kirk and I were sitting in a bar, and the conversation was, we just want to cover Iowa Hawkeye wrestling. At the time, we were fanboys, I guess you could say. We were doing some stuff for Blackheart Gold Pants. We were at the Hawkeye Nation, Hawkeye Report, doing all this stuff, and really putting in a lot of time into message boards posts. And we just decided to start a website that was started IAWrestle for the Hawkeyes. And then once people were like, wow, like, are you guys going to cover other, UNI and Iowa State? And we found the right people for that. And then got into high school wrestling, mainly because we thought there's a big niche for an online market. That we live in a state, if you're not familiar, like we've had some of the, I would say, the best journalists around the country for wrestling, writing for newspapers than anywhere else in the country, hands down. I mean, there's a reason why when you go to a wrestling tournament, maybe it's just because it's been Iowa Hawkeyes and the college events, but you see 3 to 4 Iowa journalists in the stand or on media row knocking out articles, because that those Iowa fans they're gonna want that article in the newspaper when they wake up in the morning. But we thought that there was a spot where we could come in too on the digital side of things. And from there, we've just been able to, that's just where we're trying to be in our lane and stay out of print and let those guys do what they do best. And we stay over here. And, since then, streaming has come along, partner with Track Wrestling, and they showed us the way a little bit of what we should do. And there's lots of big tournaments in Iowa. So it just continues to evolve. And if you don't evolve, you're going to get left behind. And that's one thing that I think that our crew has been able to do is evolve and try new things. Yeah, we might fall on our face. We're just a bunch of wrestling fans, and we have our faults, but we're going to try to do the best we can with our situation that we have. And most of the people have full-time jobs, and they're just having fun on the weekends. So we're competing with guys that this is what they do for full-time. This is what they do for a living. I guess you say competing. I don't look at it like that anymore since joining Rockfin, which has been nice. We're working together to grow wrestling, and that's what IAWrestle has been able to do. Is people want to be involved. That hard work has got us to this point.
Yeah, you bring up Rockfin, you bring up we're here for podcasting, and one of the things that was pervasive initially, actually not pervasive, but when you got involved in everything and started jumping on the podcast, was potentially dangerous. Which the first thing I jumped out at and got mad about was it was a better freaking name than I had anything. And we all do these wrestling terminologies for things, blood round, blood time, short time, bonus points. Like, you got potentially dangerous.
Yeah, sick.
You bastard.
Yeah, it was sick. It was, I don't know. I want to say that Ross came up with that, if I remember right, when we were coming up with names. I am almost 99% positive that was a Rossism that came up with, and then it just kind of evolved into, that was, we started doing video at the time, like Google Meets, I think is when we were first starting on. Video was something that I really wanted to focus on, not necessarily like the podcast side of things, probably because I just didn't understand it. But eventually got into Libsyn, and it's evolved now into doing live shows like this one we're doing right now. And I enjoy the live shows versus podcasting, but it's all the same. Like you have a live show, then you podcast it. It's all the same thing, just a different medium or multiple mediums, right?
Yeah, because that's one reason why I have this studio built the way I did is, I've got my bar over there. Again, because of COVID, I haven't been able to build that over there for what I want. Oh, there's a IAWrestle credential right there. To have, because of what I want to have is, Richard Immel just moved here, a little over a year ago. I helped him move last week to their, him and Amanda just bought a new house. She's an Iowa native, actually from, Sloan outside of Sioux City. And the plan for me is to have him or Brandon Paulson or people, like a lot of wrestling people, come over here. We'll do a video show of us watching wrestling. We're not going to illegally stream anything, but we're going to, kind of like a Joe Rogan match companion type of thing. Yeah. And that's why the bar is built the way it is. That's why the stuff is the way it is. And we haven't had that opportunity. So when I'm seeing what you're doing with Hager's Happy Hour, it's like, okay, a lot cleaner than my setup is, but I got a bunch more crap on the walls because you collect crap over the years. You don't really want to collect it, but you want to have the cool backgrounds. Like I go back here and let's fade up. I got International Podcast Day, so you get a little, and you can see some sound treatment over there. So eventually, we want to sit over there and record this type of thing. This is my workstation. So where I see you've got the SM7B. In case anybody are wondering, we're talking broadcasting. Same microphone I have, and then you're running, I believe, Ecamm through most of your video stuff. I've played with it. I'm using StreamYard here. People might be familiar with it. Ben Askren uses it, but podcasters have been using it heavily because it's been stable. I also use Squadcast to record. I also use the traditional Skype means and things of that nature. So when we look at the tech behind building what you've got, what were you going for, and what did it take to kind of build that studio feel where you can go wide, you have the stream deck to press the buttons to change the camera up when you want to put fellers on camera, because who knows, why would you want to do that? But just talk us through about building the studio and what you had in mind and how much it was for you personally, your Rockfin channel, and how much it impacts IAWrestle and things you're doing there.
Yeah, so for people that don't know, I used to be on Takedown TV, and everything was post-production, and it started green screen, and we built the set, and that's where I kind of, once we started going to the live set, I knew that IAWrestle could have that potential of bringing in guests and talking live. And the studio has moved in 2 different spots now. And the area that I have is fairly small. Like people come in here and they're a little surprised by it. But the biggest thing I wanted was having multiple camera angles. How do you figure that out? Usually it's just been post-production that you can do those type of things, but how do you do it live, and how can I not have a producer do it? So Ecamm was the first thing that I saw. Now I'm getting a little bit more used to StreamYard. I've been seeing that, but Ecamm, super effective, and the ability to have multiple cameras, multiple overlays that don't seem like they're pre-produced. Like I can create whatever I want on there. It's just been that program. If you're starting out, just get it and play with it. Maybe it's similar to StreamYard. I haven't played with that a whole lot, but having the feel of, I guess, an ESPN show, but being able to produce it by yourself was really important to me. And branding is always been really important to me at IAWrestle. So
branding, you say? Oh, yeah. Branding. Oh, look what we got there.
Pop.
There's a Mad Talk logo on the screen. Oh, wait, no, wait. We can also, I'm going to go there. Let's try that.
One thing I'm not sure exactly, like that type of stuff is great. Like that stuff is, and that's great that StreamYard has that. And I think people have to just explore what's cost effective for them, and something
when
that
we go live on
Rockfin,
we can put one of those up there. I'm not sure how well you can see that screen, but there you go.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, and as we talk about just going live and stuff, I mean, it's one of those things that, yeah, I built this space for that. It's one of those things that I feel like from a podcast host and stuff, I got to keep evolving in what I offer everybody. And it's one of those things that like, okay, what else can I do? Because now we've talked about, we got 25, 28 podcasters, something like that on just today. And there are tons of people that I wanted to get on the show, but I put it out there. If you wanted to be on, you signed up. I couldn't even get to everybody on my network. So you got that. What can you deliver? Is a talking head video like, when 2006, when Flow came around, there was a lot of talking head, camera in your face videos, and now they've evolved. They've got a studio. They've got live production. They've got shows before their live streams and such. And then Track Wrestling the same way. I mean, we did that with USA Wrestling, creating the live streaming. So looking at it as a content producer, and if you're out there doing the same thing, what can you offer your viewers? What can you offer? Something that's different? Is it same? I mean, I like the fact that I can hit a switcher on StreamYard right now, and it doesn't cost me very much per month. And it's always evolving. That's why you see Short Time never have. I mean, we've evolved in formats. I've tried to do the storytelling. I've tried to do the highly produced stuff. Sometimes you just ain't nobody got time for that. And sometimes you sit down and you've got happy hour, which is it's wrestling themed, but it's not a wrestling show.
Yeah.
And it's not with IAWrestle, but it's on your Rockfin thing. And you got to figure out your offerings and things. So that's sometimes where, as a content creator, it gets frustrating. As a podcast host, you're like, what do people want? And a lot of times, those fans out there that love the show don't always offer the feedback. So sometimes we're guessing and throwing things at quite literally the dartboard, and hoping they stick and hit the bullseye.
Yeah, I mean, IAWrestle. IAWrestle, we're happy if we're going to happy hour route here. The conversation, I guess. IAWrestle, we
can go both. I mean, we got time.
IAWrestle, trying to be as professional journalists as we possibly can. I mean, in Iowa, we're trying. I mean, it's competing, but like we're getting compared to, say, Jim Nelson, KJ Pilcher, Andy Hamilton, Wyatt Schultz, like constant professionals. There's many more of them, right? But we toe the line of fanboy, having fun, but also bringing a high level product as high as we can. And sometimes you can get like real. It just gets like just so boring. Like it's the same thing you do every time. So Hager's Happy Hour really is a time, and it keeps evolving. I mean, sometimes the shows are super serious. Like Jesse Whitmer last week, Fellers hosted that one. To the week before, Lars was on here, and we were doing push-ups on this table, and we had like 40 beers. So, I mean, every episode's a little different with that one. That's kind of as a release from, I guess you could say, the rigid professional side of what I do for a living, I guess. And you get to be more, I guess, me, which I should do more in IAWrestle, but happy hour, I can't really drink beer on IAWrestle's podcast. So, I guess I could, but.
Well, the thing is being an independent media professional. Yeah, sure. But that's the thing I want to do with the speakeasy here is our after hours stuff. Like recovery time later is going to be, where Tony Rotundo, who got me a bottle of Pliny, he talked about bringing me a bottle of Pliny the Elder when he came for Nationals, but Nationals were canceled. And actually one of my patrons, Greer Reachout, he sent me a bottle of Pliny the Elder. Granted, I just probably committed an act of mail fraud or something by saying it. I didn't say how he sent it to me, so never mind.
There you go.
But yeah, so Tony's going to host that with me later. We're going to just kick back. We're finally going to recover and just kick back and have some beers and just talk about wrestling, kind of like a little bit. This is kind of a prelude of what's going on there. It's a different Tony this time, but
have you tried to do like the Wrestling Underground or the Flow card, the Rockfin card? Have you tried to do watch the live event like via this way, and you do it together, or you're trying to go for like the live vibe, right? So
right.
Well, the spot, yeah.
I played around with a Facebook room with the Chamizo date card, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do because I was gonna pop my laptop over there and sit there and watch it like up on the screen and type back, and do it on Facebook Live or something. Eventually, that'll be where I put it on Rockfin, because that's something I want to be different, and that'll be, behind a paywall. You get Rockfin, you'll get a perspective unlike anything else while watching wrestling with your buddies. Is kind of how I'm framing it. And I couldn't get it to work because my Focusrite it was just something with the wiring over there. It wasn't quite great. I didn't really plan it super great. And then with the Wrestling Underground card, it was quick. I sat down, I watched it for an hour and a half, but it was also bedtime for the kids, and I've got a 4-year-old and an 8-year-old. So figuring that out, and then what I was going to do with the Nittany Lion card, I'm like, okay, I can't commit to how long it was going to be, because it was 13 matches. I think it was 13 matches. You don't know how long those are going to go. So without having everything set up and like I have to carve that out a week ahead of time and say, okay, hey, I'm going to do this nightly thing. And when we get into the wrestling season, yeah, we know that I'm tied into wrestling, because the Big Ten Network on Friday nights is, especially when they have double headers, that's 4 hours of wrestling on TV. It's fantastic. So
yeah.
Ultimately, yeah, I do want the live thing. I played around with different technology, but now that I feel like this International Podcast Day has shown that this is stable and it works, and we can do people, we've had, the only thing we had was, Rob couldn't get the webcam to work, but that's not, he worked. It was just the EOS didn't like his camera. That's something that's, immaterial, the platform. And this thing, I can go to Periscope. I can go to Twitch. I can go to YouTube. I'm only going to Twitch because Facebook Live was really wonky in setting up the embeds. So, you got 3 of them, and then the comments come in. So that's really what I'm looking for, is like, if I'm not going to be traveling, honestly, with Big Ten Network, I don't need to go to Carver. As much as I love going to Carver, I don't need to. I don't need 10 hours on the road to see what I can see on TV. So, and then with Richard being close, and then the wrestling community we have here in Minnesota, I feel like that can be another direction that Matt Talk can go and create content. It's not necessarily a podcast, but it's content that people want to hear. I mean, what I learned about the Rudis show, which is on hiatus, it's going to come back when the wrestling season's around. It's just like, most of the time I'm hosting these shows and I'm not interjecting my opinion or my thoughts in them as much. So that's one thing that Mike Finn told me years ago, market myself. So, it's one of those things. We're sitting on a golf course at the Dan Gable golf tournament, and he goes, you know what? You need to market yourself more. And that's where basically Matt Talk was born. It was my creation in 1997. And when I had to come time to start my own business, that's where it came from. And that's why I've got International Podcast Day. And that's why I've got all these podcasters out here talking, because I can never not talk enough about wrestling.
Yeah. There's not, that's what's interesting about this too. What you got set up here is finding out why people did certain things with the podcast. I listened to Rob Hill, just kind of how he got started, why he got started. There's so much different technology out there. You can make it right here. And just, the one thing I learned from you is, if you're going to do it like half high quality, like that's one of your biggest pet peeves is, you can do it from a phone. You can do it. Now we have Zoom, so that helps a little bit for a lot of people, or you can have it as high level as you possibly want. And then, are you going to be someone that starts and gains, or, everyone, what I really hate to see is when people start something and then they don't get that automatic like return, or, maybe you got 100 downloads at first, then it went to like 1,000, and then it went down to 500. You're like, I just don't want to do this anymore, because, you're not getting that instant gratification. So what I'm hoping, people are hearing and listening to these shows is like, I just need to keep after it. I got to evolve. Like if it's not successful, like you just got to change it, or if you just want to do it just to get a release, like from freaking reality, then let's do it. I mean, happy hour, I literally had no plans for that. I mean, most people start things that, have you got passion for it, or you want to make money. Happy hour, just a release. But now, like, I mean, we're interviewing guys like Galvin Alger, Lubo, and people are opening up. Like at first you're thinking, we're just going to drink beer and play video games. And then, guys like Randy Lewis, who you look up to, he's crying, talking about his life and talking about wrestling. So what your idea is for a show doesn't have to be what it is every single time. You can evolve. You don't have to be Jason Bryant. You don't have to be Joe Rogan. You can be whatever the hell you want. And if people are just watching this throughout the day, this is why you're doing this, is figure out just what makes you passionate and own that little spot. So the idea that you have with like watching wrestling and drinking beer, and like that's great. Like that's somebody else's. You've probably seen somebody else doing that in other sports, and you're like, we definitely could do that in wrestling. Let's freaking do it. So you built a freaking studio around it. Like that's awesome.
Well, and some of it honestly is I had the idea to do it, and then Ty Eustace called me when he was still working with J Rob, and it's like, hey, I've got this idea about doing Match Companion. And I'm like, and this is before we probably a year before we even started the renovation down here, and it was like, you know what, Ty, we can do that. Just give me some time to build the studio. And then he went and took the job at Mankato again, and it was like, okay, well. And then Richard moves to the area. So we got to just make sure once we get post-COVID, we're comfortable having people in here as I move the camera up. He goes, like an international podcast day up there. Yeah, working on that. But once we get that there, it's like, I want this to be, that's why I had this place ready to go for nationals. People were going to come over here. We're going to break this bar in the right way.
Yeah.
And sadly, we didn't get to do that. And so hopefully when there's an event in Minnesota, maybe another event comes to Minnesota, we can have people over. But I was going to give my wife and kids the hotel room for the night. They go swimming in the pool, and I'd be bringing. It would be dangerous to have. It wouldn't be potentially dangerous. It'd be just straight up dangerous to have everybody I was going to bring over. Jerry Briscoe would have been here. I mean, the Blood Round guys would have been here. I mean, it would have been just. It would have been
rough morning.
It would have been afternoon.
A day.
A rough afternoon.
A rough day. It was NCAA championships, and you got to pace yourself.
Well, you remember, I have to pace myself. It's maybe me and Hazard maybe have one beverage after we get out of there. Like if it's in the Eastern time zone, we're kind of hosed because it's starting at 8 and you're done at 11:30, and you're like, I got to go to bed because you got to be up early. You need good sleep. So, in my younger years, my gallivanting around tournaments was. I think I made the turf legendary in wrestling circles in Fargo. So, it's been, it's been a life of learning from your mistakes and whatnot. So, but when it comes to podcasting, it's like we've been able to do these things in great places. I think I've done podcasts from 10 or 12 different countries, various formats. I've done them live. I've done them, we did live in Fargo when it was me and Earl and Julia Salata and Willie, and, we had parents and fans coming up and just having a good time and being able to be functional, be like, okay, let's pop up the recorders. Let's go and do something that people are going to enjoy. So that's one thing I also like about the whole medium as well.
Where I got a question for you in regards to the podcasting, before, as far as, it's your job. Like, so revenue is like, okay, you want most podcast, downloads, right, for potential advertisers. You're only dog pony and show, and then there's now like, hey, there's 100 people out there doing podcasts. How do people out there that are watching this create a niche for themselves to where they can, create revenue from it if they want to? What do you think is the next thing, I guess, without giving away all your secrets?
Well, one thing I learned is if you don't have a show and you want to start a podcast with the sole intention of making money, good luck. Because, I look at my, like my Patreon, for example, which I'm going to actually put up on the screen now. I can do a banner, put it here. You can, whether it be PayPal, buy me a coffee, join Rockfin, whatever. I'll throw that on here as a shameless self-promotion because, again, I'm 7 hours and 40 minutes in, 7 hours and 42 minutes in to International Podcast Day. But, you pop up a Patreon and it doesn't happen overnight. It depends on your following, because now people know what Patreon is. I say Patreon to my nephew, who's a sophomore at the University of Minnesota, and he's like, like influencers do that. Well, I'm not trying to be a social media influencer, but it takes a while to build up that listenership. And, Tony DeMarco was just on, and he's a patron. And then, some people come in and out. We had a guy that just bailed out after about 5 years of supporting. And it's not like you've got to have all those people all the time. And some people say, well, it's the 10 active people that are greater than the 1,000 inactive people. So, if people want to contribute, I encourage it, because I do a lot of free stuff. That newsletter, that daily newsletter, that's a free thing. Yeah, I put if you want to donate, great. The Rockfin thing is provided another option, whether it be if people send me PayPal or something like that. So a lot of it, I don't want it to be handout based. I want you to have. My friend Jen Briney does a show called congressional dish, where she started out reading the bills and here's what kind of stuff's getting through Congress and whatnot. And then it's become just basically, she's basically become a journalist in terms of reporting on what bills are getting passed, what's stuffed in them, what the riders are. And she does a great job. And she's got like Ethereum, Litecoin, Bitcoin, PayPal, paper check. She has like 19 different ways to contribute. And it took her 8 years to really get to the point where it was like, this is how she's making her living. And, value for value is the model. In wrestling, where I found the biggest trouble with the podcasting side of things is we expect things for free. And that is a hard sell sometimes, because when I was at Intermat in 2005 to 2008, nobody in this sport, and I mean, and I'm not trying to just say like be an egotistical, pat myself on the back. Nobody was putting out more wrestling content than Intermat was. And it was premium service items almost every day. I had the recruiting cornered. And this was before social media. So, I didn't just pull a tweet and that's a commitment. I was chasing this stuff down. A little bit of MySpace. That's about it. The high school kids didn't even have Facebook yet, because it was only college kids at the time, or recent graduates.
Pull up Adam Feller's MySpace. I guarantee he's still got Adam Feller's got MySpace still rolling. I guarantee.
Yeah, with that, he's the guy that's got like Lips of an Angel by Hinder on his player. That's what he had. I guarantee he's that guy.
Shit.
I know. He's shaking his head because I'm right. But in terms of like trying to create something, so I set out to make a model that wasn't about a donation based or a handout model. So I provided a service, and ODU jumped on board, Virginia Tech jumped on board, Buena Vista jumped on board, Maryland jumped on board. So my initial thoughts was I was going to have 20 shows like that. And it started out with 5, and then Short Time was kind of like this is my passion project, and then a Patreon really to pay for the Hall of Fame show that we're working on, and then that kind of became a Patreon for everything. So in order to try to make a living off of it, it was good when I had those clients, and then we have the NWCA now has a show, and there's been 18 shows have come and gone. It's not like I've had 37 shows on the network. So, all of them have paid it some way, shape, or form. The only thing, Kyle Klingman and I have had a good relationship since, we mended fences after our 411 thing, and which we've talked about publicly and on other shows. But I've always been, that show needs to be a podcast, and we made it a podcast, and it's always been kind of there for me and there for him. So trying to develop something, you're not going to get ad revenue with no audience base. But most of these places like Midroll won't even talk to you unless you get 50,000 downloads an episode. So get it out of your mind that if you're a wrestling show, you're going to get that. FRL doesn't get that. Granted, I don't know what their numbers are, but I guarantee I know what they're not. And same with, and Rogan gets those numbers. He got how much money from Spotify? We're not going to get that.
Yeah.
So when creating something for the podcast, for the wrestling community through podcasting, it's, again, I want to do something that nobody's doing, but I also want to do something that will change. So right now, okay, all of a sudden, all these interviews are popping up. Like I think Earl had talked about, that if you have a big event on Friday, everybody wants to get that match. Okay, that's their news topic. That's your news item. And, he did it with his sudden history. Well, sometimes I want to tell the stories that are getting overlooked. And, the D3 guys, thankfully, the Bonaventuras have picked up where the Ice Hour ended. D3 Nation has picked up. So thankfully, I'm grateful for them. But ultimately, it's time, too, because a lot of people can do podcasts, but at some point, you hire an announcer, or do you hire an announcer, when I'm doing announcing? You hire an announcer, great, here's the rate. Well, you hire the Olympic announcer, well, that's not going to be the same rate, because there's value. I bring that experience, that sound to it. You get what you pay for in some regards. So the hardest thing is to try to pitch something when, I don't want to say there's clutter, because I don't get protective over the podcast space like some people did about audio. Everybody has the right to do whatever if they want to create a website, they want to do a Rockfin channel, they want to do a podcast, they want to do a YouTube channel, they want to do they want to have Twitch, they can do fine, absolutely great. In podcasting, I encourage everybody to podcast. That is why I did this today, is because I felt like the wrestling community doesn't know enough about the podcasting community and the information and the tools available. And I've been kind of that bridge for that, which is where all my information comes from, talking to those people, the Dave Jacksons, the Jim Collisons from Ask the Podcast Coach, the Rob Walsh from Libsyn, Todd Cochran from Blueberry. These are people that have been in the space since day one. And I jumped in 4 years after the first podcast was out there. Adam Curry, You might know him from MTV back in the day.
Yeah.
He created podcasts with a guy named Dave Weiner. So the technology is no longer a barrier, but I don't get protective every time there's a new show coming in. Granted, like Jude Swisher and Sam Herring, they got Bo Nickel on their show after Bo said no to my request that I'd submitted through Penn State. So, so you can't get all hot and bothered about not getting a guest that shows on somebody else. Like I wanted Jay Moore for years. Blood Round's gotten him twice. So you get out of the protective owning it. Well, I did this, I should do this. No, just evolve, change. I mean, if something happens and everybody's doing it, I'm gonna veer this way and put a different spin on it.
Correct. Yeah, that's just have your own show culture.
And that doesn't say that you can't have the same format as somebody else. If Correct. It's different, I mean, it's not this. You're not copying the show. Now, when you copy the show, that's when I might get a little, or you take something. That's where I'm okay. Let's pump the brakes on that a little bit. But for the most part, I've always tried to provide something that it's different because I want to educate, and I feel like I didn't get into wrestling until 1995. I saw my first match. I didn't grow up wrestling. My wrestling hometown was great. So that's how I discovered wrestling, but I'm still learning. I mean, I'm going through from 97 on, I'm pretty good, but I'm looking through amateur wrestling news from 1959 right now. I got these guys, I'm putting together these historical databases that nobody's ever done. And I'm going to get content out of that. And guess what? If you're a Rockfin subscriber, if you're a patron, you're going to get stuff that unless you're 80 years old, you've never seen before. Because nobody's got those archives. I mean, they're right over here. You can kind of see them off the bottom of my screen. That's some of them. There's some NCAA wrestling guides there. Now, the guides are available online through the Hall of Fame, but the AWNs, the hard copy, the data that's in there, and combine that with the events I've been to and my Fargo database, nobody's got that stuff. And that's going to become content. And that is where educationally, you're going to listen to my shows and you're going to learn something each and every time.
Yeah, that's great.
I don't like there's nothing wrong with a rehash. There's nothing wrong with a recap and giving your own perspective. There's no problem with that. But I also know that you're going to pick what you want with that type of stuff. And a lot of people aren't looking at me for the technical analysis because I was a shitty wrestler. So that's not going to happen. Well, with me and Dernlin, he was the D1 coach. He was the D1 athlete. I was the guy that looks behind the X Factor stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at with what I want to bring. I want to bring something you've never heard before. Or if you have, a different spin on it. So that's kind of really where I come from. And that's wow, it's my show, yet you've turned it around on me. Good job, Tony.
Hey, well, I mean, I think anybody out there, looking at podcasting, art creates art. So when you start getting protective about certain things that you've done or you are doing, like, you've helped a lot of people that have, their podcast maybe was just like right here, right? And then you might have done one thing that has gotten them to here, like, so you've done a lot for specific people. I listened to Blood Round and he, those guys don't know what the hell they were doing. They just want to drink beer. And I've heard things that you've done for them. So, and I don't know if you charge them or not, but
no. And here's the thing. I want to just cut in real quick. I have a consultant thing on the website, like whatever, like, but you know what? You asked me a question about a podcast. I'm going to tell you what I think. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you what I think the best way to do it. And there's platforms out there people have used that I would never start a show with, but there's nothing wrong with you starting a show there. That don't just because I don't endorse something for me doesn't mean I don't think it's good for you. Kind of like Anchor is an example. They get beat up a lot, but they're free, they're quick, and if you want to fire up a show pretty quickly, that's a good way to do it. Yeah. I had the same general thought with SoundCloud years ago, and then they haven't updated their specs since 2015. So it's not where I would advise you to start a show there now. I mean, musicians are great. Hey, what's your SoundCloud? Put it on Twitter. But yeah, if you've got a question, ask me. I'm always willing to provide the advice. And, I've been helped over the years by people, and I don't want to say paying it forward, but yeah, I've been trying to, pay it forward, probably paying it more forward than I've actually received. But if you got a question about podcasting, that's what I'm here for. That's why I'm doing this. I mean, these aren't paid promotions. You're not paying to be here. Ryan Warner coming up next. He's not paying to be here. I just put a tweet out. Who wants to be part of the show? And 14 hours of podcasting. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to help and promote the medium, and just if we can educate the wrestling podcasters to do things and be aware of the medium they're using and not just Google something first and use the first response. So that's kind of the one thing that I'm really kind of hanging on is, listen, if you're going to do something right, ask me. I can help you do it the right way. You don't have to do it the exact way I do it, because there is no there's some wrong ways to do it, but there's a lot of right ways to do it too.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of out there right now with podcasting. So, I think it is what do you want it to be? Fellers has knew nothing about podcasting when he came in, and what things that I care about, he doesn't care, and the things that it's good. It's good that he's good for me, because like I just let loose a little bit because I shouldn't care about the things that I do care. So, bouncing things off of each other and getting feedback is always a good thing. I think like taking feedback is really important too. With people that are maybe listening is, don't be afraid when someone says, "Hey dude, like your camera sucks. Like put your camera by your head," or if someone says like, "Hey, your audio sucks," like that pisses me off. Like,
well, also you don't just say your audio sucks. If you're going to offer that type of criticism, but also don't like try to, I mean, for lack of a better term, mansplain to them. I usually formulate that with like, "Hey, what are you?" Like with Kevin and Tommy, I'm like, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" Roxana Scott at USA Today had an Olympic podcast that was right before Rio, and I'm like, "Hey, I really like," her DMs were open, thankfully. I'm like, "Hey, really like your show. Can I ask you what you're doing with your audio?" Because I'm a guy, I'm a one AirPod guy. So when you've got one guest to one channel and one guest on the other, and I can't hear it, I'm curious. Plus, your file size is smaller if it's mono.
Uh-huh.
A lot of people don't know that too. So, but again, I reached out, but I didn't try to like be big shot smarty pants in terms of here's what you're doing wrong. I was like, no, tell me what you're doing, and maybe I think I know what I can help you with your audio.
Yep.
And some people don't want that. Another friend of mine did a podcast. And I said, "Hey, I think I can help you with that." There was no interest in correcting it. It was just I use the term passion project a lot now because it was just their show. AC was going on in the background. They didn't care. They just loved the show, and that's what it was. So sometimes people don't want your help. So don't be offended when they don't want it.
For sure. I mean, I appreciate having me on here, and
a lot of behind the dirt, so to speak, or how the sausage is made and some of the mindset that goes in with doing a show and just having an outlet. We've got Rockfin shows. We want to promote those things here, and these videos are going to go up after the fact there. I mean, you do that one on the free side, and there's going to be a lot of content that comes out of this as we're coming up on hour number 8.
Yeah, this Friday, I mean, I'm just going to do a plug right now. This Friday, we've got Ryan Morningstar on the show live. He's coming from Iowa City. And everyone, it's been public now what's going on with him. And so Friday is going to be a deep show. Well, I'm hoping that we'll have a few beers. Brian won't, but it will go deep, and things that you probably didn't know about Ryan are hopefully going to come out, and that's going to be therapeutic for everyone involved. So that'll be Friday at 2. I hope people watch that. And then next Wednesday, we've got Jason Christensen. For the wrestling folks, he's made a Hall of Fame career at Southeast Poke. That's going to be
that hat around here somewhere.
Yeah, Southeast Poke. That's going to be dropping next Wednesday, and that's live as well. Thank God for Ross Barczyk, because I've gotten into these live shows, the video side of things, and he's able to format them in MP3 and get them up on the podcast side of things. So shout out to him for keeping me in check and not being lazy on the podcast side. So.
When it comes to Morningstar, one of the greatest days I've had at a wrestling event was with Ryan Morningstar and Royce Alger. So before you get to the deep stuff, ask him about Sheriff Royce and the haunted pub crawl of London 2012.
Okay. Yes. All right. I'm in. I'll remember that.
Yeah, because if I ever go back to London, I know where I'm going, because I got to see if my dollar bill is still on the ceiling.
Okay. I'm in.
All right. With that, we're going to shut down this. See, your happy hour is going to keep going. We've gone, an hour. We got Ryan Warner coming up next, and this is going to be a fun one. As International Podcast Day Wrestling Edition continues. Tony Hager, IAWrestle.com. Going to bring it up on screen real quick. That's where you're at. Actually, let's put both of us on there. There we go.
Boom.
All of that, all the juiciness from Night of Conflict still there. Everything you can do, potentially dangerous, all that stuff, good stuff. Mr. Hager.
Yeah, IAWrestle.com is, you know, it's evolving to other states now, and that's what we're excited about too. Is you get the right people and go into these other states, and they get passionate people there, and where states maybe weren't doing what we're doing in Iowa, now we're growing wrestling in those other states too, and turn it into a business, right? That's the goal. Now this is what I do full time. And I appreciate everybody that's come on to Rockfin here this past year, because it's been able for me to pay our people around IAWrestle, and now they want to do more. And that's just going to ramp up what we're able to do here in Iowa, and bring the wrestling coverage to the level that people in Iowa, and I think the country, haven't been able to see at our type of level, you know, in a state run, not a multi-million-dollar company. I mean, that's the goal, right? But
Grassroots, brother.
Grassroots wrestling. So
bootstrapping the grassroots.
Thanks for the time. And Ryan Warner, that's a guy that's started a podcast, and he owns it, man. He's traveling and getting likes of John Smith and crew. So kudos to him for what he's been able to build, and the social media branding behind that too. So
yeah, he's going to be good to talk to here in a bit. So 311's got Grassroots for your mama. That's IAWrestle's new theme song, because 311's from Omaha. But Tony Hager, we'll be in touch.
Cheers, brother. Thank you.